When you move, you need a reliable company led by passionate folks, eager to assist its customers during a transitional process that needs to be smooth. Call Essential Moving Experts at 844-368-5750 for all your local and long-distance moving needs. You can rely on Essential Moving Experts. Mention the Big O Show and get $150 off. Family owned and operated, they offer free 30-day storage, full-service moving, fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Moving was never so easy. EssentialMovingExperts.com. The viewpoint, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyAccess.com, Media Group Inc., ownership, management, sponsors, or website. The Miami Hurricanes Watch with host Mike McCoy is on. The Watch is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Shobe. Time for hardcore Miami Hurricanes talk. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
What's up, everybody? Good evening. Happy Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. Can you believe we're in October already, man? That is insane. Daylight savings time is coming up shortly. What is it, like close to Halloween or something like that? I was at my son's football practice a little earlier, and it was already feeling cooler. We had a little bit of a coolness, for lack of a better phrase, last week, a couple of days that it was in the 70s. Felt really, really nice. And I like being outside at night, so I noticed it and I loved it. But hope everybody's week has been going well. Bye week for the Canes, not bye week for us. You know, we're here live, full in effect. And if you guys didn't know, for those of you that are local in the Kendall area, Miami area, or close enough to get to walk-ons this Saturday, the pre and post game show for the UNC game, which kicks off at 4 p.m. We'll be live at walk-ons. Big O, Chad, myself, and Sean, the whole crew. We're going to be doing the show from there. 2-hour pregame, 2-hour postgame. I am excited about that. So see if you can get there in time to, hang out with us, catch the game, and some postgame, and hopefully we're there for a Canes win, man. So, a lot to get to. Not enough time to get to it. Got a nice guest in the second segment, and then we'll talk about some things. To wrap things up in the last segment. But where do we start, man? I was quoted as saying a couple weeks ago that I wish Miami kind of had the bye week after the A&M game and then went into Middle Tennessee State and then ACC play. My reasoning behind that was, Middle Tennessee poses a lot of the same challenges that UNC does, so it would have been a nice prep for UNC. We all know how that happened, but that's what I was hoping for. In any event, here we are, Miami 2-2. If I would have told you that before this season, you wouldn't have been happy. Wins against Bethune and Southern Miss, and then a tough loss against A&M on the road, 17-9, and then we all know what happened 2 weeks ago. Middle Tennessee State University, ESPN2, October 8th, 4 p.m. Visiting UNC comes to town, and boy, that's gonna be a challenge because they're gonna pose a lot of the same issues in the aerial attack for Miami secondary. We're going to get into what Miami has done in the offseason and, not the offseason, the off week, the bye week, and how they got to prep for UNC. So let's get started. Where do we start? Let's talk about guys that need to step up in the wide receiver room, because on Monday during the coach availability session, media session, Frank Latson was one of the guys that was brought up, right? And, a lot of hype surrounding Frank Latson when he was coming out of high school, out of South Day Senior High School, signed with Clemson. Now he's back home in Miami doing his thing, for the Hurricanes. And so, that's a guy that Coach mentioned that, needs to step up, has had some really good practices in the past couple of weeks, and he's a guy that has impressed him enough to earn live reps. So there is something on Friday that, if some of you are not aware, that the Canes have, they call an opportunity scrimmage, which is guys that don't get much of an opportunity. They have an opportunity to show where they're at in terms of, getting a scrimmage. So maybe they can get some live game reps when, they show that they're ready in that scrimmage, or if they keep doing their thing in practice, or we'll see sometime throughout the season whenever they're available. Whether it's because guys are banged up or whether it's because they're really coming up on the depth chart, that's what Fridays are for. So, some guys have impressed. Frank Latson is one of them. And for those of you that cannot recall, Frank Latson, like I said, wide receiver, South Day Senior High School, one of Miami's taller targets. And I'm just one of those guys, man, that when Miami gets in the red zone, we all know that Miami's issues are once they get inside the red zone, do a masterful job between the 20s, and then there's just an issue there. And then, if you guys did your homework on Gaddis's Michigan offense last season, Gaddis did a tremendous job of scoring in the red zone, but not scoring TDs in the red zone. Their ranking in terms of scoring TDs in the red zone, Michigan's offense was last year was, in the lower half of NCAA football, but they put up points. That wasn't thinking like in the top 20. But I'm tying that together with Frank Latson because you guys heard me say this before, man. He brings height. So does Jaleel Skinner. So does Mallory. So does anybody else out there. I want to see a fade. I really want to see fades, especially if you're inside the 5-yard line, inside the 10-yard line. Throw it up. Throw it up on one of those. I think sometimes it could be a case of maybe guys overthinking a situation or out-coaching themselves. I am no X's and O's guy, okay? All right, doesn't mean I don't know about football. Doesn't mean I can't hold my conversation. But in terms of X's and O's and what to do here and this and that or whatever, I'm not the guy to talk to in terms of that, okay? I'll be listening in that conversation. However, I think I know enough to know that that's a good opportunity to throw a one-on-one of fade. And you don't need a guy to be 6'3". It could be 5'10". I've seen Braxton Berrios. They remind me of the same guy. Sorry. Go up for fades. I've seen it. I've seen Stacey Coley do it. Stacey Coley isn't 5'10", but I've seen him do it. He isn't, a 6'4", 6'5" tower of a guy, but Frank Latson is a guy that can definitely do that. And speaking on Frank Latson, there's a clip here. Again, this is from Monday's press conference that Coach Mario Cristobal was asked about Frank Latson. And so I want you guys to take a listen.
Played hard, made contested catches. Sure. Yeah. No, we feel confident that he can, and we got to impress on his test.
Latson, what'd you like about what he showed?
Drastic improvement, confidence. From day one, since we signed Frank Latson, what we were hoping to see is starting to come together, and we expect another big week from him in terms of practice and preparation.
Sorry, but for the slight technical difficulties there was a little bit of more information he spoke on Frank. He was basically talking about how much he's impressed the coaches enough that they have confidence in him in reps that really, 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 really matter, in game reps. And look, for a guy that really hasn't, inserted himself into the lineup because of whatever the case may be, nothing is better or nothing is more valuable than in-game reps. You can impress all you want. We've heard the guys that have been, green tree All-Americans, a lot of people like to phrase the term, but, nothing replaces in-game reps. So whatever you can do on the practice field to get yourself reps in the game, then, that's great that he's getting up to that level that coaches trust him. And remember, being a receiver is not just going out and catching the ball. A lot of the issues that people outside of the building, okay, I'm not sure if this was something that was confirmed or if this was something that was 100% factual, but route depths and run blocking and knowing exactly what to do, being in sync with your quarterback timing, those are all issues that are important. Not issues, but those are all elements that are important to wide receiver play. So once you get good, when the coach is good graces enough to go ahead and see the field because you've established those things on Green Tree, then you'll get the in-game reps, and that's when you start to see progress. So the fact that he's progressed to that point, that's a plus. Wide receiver, somebody stepping at the receiver room, that's another thing. Not another thing, but that's something that's huge because especially with X being out in the same press conference, Mario talked about that being maybe 5 to 6 weeks. And at that point, you got to wonder what's Miami's season looking like if and when he's ready to come back. because let's just say, Miami is not looking good, in terms of whatever bowl eligibility or whatever the case was. By the way, Manny Navarro went ahead and predicted that's not predicted, but well, yeah, I guess I could say predicted that Miami wouldn't hit a bowl game, and that sucks to hear. And Manny's one of those guys that keeps it honest and to the point. He calls it how he sees it. So to hear that, and he's around the program a lot, just hearing that is kind of discouraging. And I know he hopes he's wrong. I hope he's wrong. You hope he's wrong. Everybody hopes he's wrong. But you just got to wonder if X maybe takes a red shirt at that point, because what's the point of coming back if the season isn't looking how it should or how everybody wanted it to be. So and then Jacoby George, that's another guy that's out. So Miami really needs guys to step up. I personally am a Romello Brinson type of guy, and I'm just waiting for him to blow up. Okay. All right. I've heard from people in the know that he's been taking reps at every different receiver position that there is. So that's good to hear. And I'm just waiting for somebody, anybody, I don't care who it is, just to take the bull by the horns, man, because Miami needs something that starts with an L and ends with ship, and that's called leadership. And right now it doesn't seem like they have it. Again, seemingly, because I don't know what's like inside the locker room, but if they do have a leader, they're not doing what they need to do to get the attention of everybody else. I know that player accountability, we saw that some towards the beginning of the season, but you need more, because whatever's been going on hasn't been working. And it's like we're watching the same movie every different year. Like I've seen this movie before, and it's really discouraging. I want to talk about running back depth real quick, because there are some rumblings of Henry Parrish's availability, right? I don't know what they are. They aren't confirmed. And just like weeks prior, I think that we're going to have a look at the actual depth chart right before kickoff, which I don't have a problem with. Okay. And so Thad seems like he may be the only scholarship running back available. I don't know about Rooster and how he's looking, but and remember, Lucius Stanley is not on scholarship. He's the UAB running back that Miami picked up. But that's that, right? And there's another clip that I wanted to talk about, because Gaddis was also Josh Gaddis, Miami's offensive coordinator, was also asked about the quarterback situation, and it was actually Manny Navarro, who we just talked about, and Miami didn't think Miami was going to make a bowl game. He was asked about why did it look like TVD was taking more shots downfield Jake was taking more shots than TVD downfield instead of TVD. Was that something that was changed once TVD was replaced by Jake, or was it meant to have different play calls once Jake got in? So here's Gaddis on that question.
No, it's sometimes games go that way, flows and rhythm of games. And so obviously Jake did a really good job coming in, executing, and it's one that we look back on it, we just didn't capitalize on things early in the game, but we've got the utmost confidence in Tyler. He's our quarterback, and just like as Jake came in, we got the utmost confidence in him, and Jake has done a great job preparing, and he was able to go in and have some success.
So that's Gaddis on Jake, coming in and kind of taking more shots down the field than TVD, seemed to have done against Middle Tennessee State a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm not done talking about what we need to talk about. We'll continue it, not next segment because we got a guest, but in the final segment when we come back talking with Scott Patton. If you guys remember him, you should. Number 71, started here for a while and moved on to Colorado State up in, Fort Collins, I think, in Colorado. I'm not sure. But we're going to talk to him on the other side of the break. You are listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with myself, Mike McCoy, on the 305 Sports Talk Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the home for hardcore Miami Hurricanes coverage. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
Red Recover now offers a simple-to-use, professional-grade light therapy device designed to help your dog heal and live a healthier life. Red Recover emits red and infrared light therapy based on the same science that NASA developed, all in a soft, flexible housing pad, powered by a convenient, rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Say yes to science and give your dog the care it deserves with Red Recover.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
You're locked into the only platform truly dedicated to South Florida sports. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch on the Sports Talk 305 network. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
Thank you guys for sticking around with us throughout that last break. You are listening to the Miami Hurricanes Watch with myself, Mike McCoy, on the 305 Sports Talk Network. Got a nice little guest with us, joining us right now, and he goes by the name of Scott Patton, number 71 with the Miami Hurricanes from, I believe it was, what class did you come in, Scott?
I was 15.
2015. Moved on to Colorado State University, had a nice little 2-year run there. And he's joining us now live on the show. How you been, man?
Good, man. Good. Back in Tampa now, hunkered down. Just got done dealing with all the hurricane. What is it, Ian?
Yeah.
Doing a bunch of cleanup stuff like that. But yeah, man, nothing crazy, man. How you doing?
Good to hear. I can't complain, man. Thanks for asking. I'm assuming everything okay with the family and home and like the physical, your properties up there. Everything okay?
Yeah, man. All good. Nothing crazy. I mean, we didn't really get it that bad.
Okay.
It was more down south. I think like Sarasota, Fort Myers, all those down there really got hit hard. But we made out, man, because it took that right turn. So.
Okay. That's good to hear, man. Because I got some people up there that they were close to destruction or like in the middle of it, and they came out, shaky, but they're okay. So it's good to hear that you guys are good. And by the way, I am a big defender of this guy that's joining us on the show right now because he took a lot of unwarranted heat by Canes fans that just didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So let me get my soapbox off real quick before we start talking to Scott on whatever I want to ask him. A lot of people like to give him heat because, what the hell was he doing on the field? If Miami has this alien behind him by the name of Greg Rousseau, blah, 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 Scott Patton this, Scott Patton that, shut the hell up. Because if you knew anything about anything, you'd remember and you'd know that Greg Rousseau wasn't available. Greg Rousseau wasn't available in 2019 before he got his first start at home against Virginia, which was Manny Diaz's first win versus a ranked team. I called that game for WVUM up in the booth. And so Greg Rousseau, he I think he had a back injury over it during fall camp, and thank God Miami had somebody like Scott, because Scott was I think he was one of the best run defenders on the team. Okay, really stout, really technical guy. And when you have a guy that comes in as a defensive end, is asked to switch over to tight end, then back to defensive end, tears his ACL in the process, and just does anything that the coaches asked him, because I'm a Cane. I'll do whatever it takes to win. His dad played here back in the day, all right? His brother was a Gator. We're not going to talk about that. But you defend guys like that, all right? You defend guys like that, and I call shame on anybody that talk crap about him. So there we go. No Scott Patton slander allowed on the show. But Scott, man, thanks for joining us. Just wanted to ask you, man, you've seen what's going on, 2-2. What's your take on the team so far? Because you have some guys that you were playing with, and they were, they're playing now, and I'm sure you're close to some of the guys that are still on the team. What do you gauge from the outside looking in? What the hell's going on?
Well, here's what I'll say. One, I don't think we truly have a, good understanding of what exactly is going on. And I wish I had a better one. I think I have insight because, like you said, I've played with some of those guys, but, it's different when you're a part of the team and you know
Right.
what the actual game plan is going into, every week, and you know what the team is trying to accomplish and how you're trying to attack, that opponent and how you think, that opponent is weak. But I can say this though, because I went through a lot of coaching change in my show. I mean, in my career. Uh, but it's not easy. One, you got to get guys to buy in. And if you don't buy in, if you're one of those guys, and you're forced to play because of needs on the team or injuries, because I think the biggest thing people forget about is over the course of the season, attrition happens. Guys get hurt, banged up. You got to play with who you have, and it's not always the coach's first decision or the best guy on the field. That's just always the case and how it is sometimes. But tying that back in, I don't really see this season being that big of a deal, regardless to how it turns out. I still think that they have a chance to be really successful in ACC play because ultimately, I mean, other than Clemson being Clemson, I don't really see anybody being that big of a threat. I think LSU, wasn't that good of a team, and I think FSU is kind of riding momentum from that game. They've got a big, tall receiver from what I saw in a couple clips, but other than that, I don't see like, people that are jumping off the screen. You know what I mean? And I give Coach Cristobal, 3-4 years for sure, and I'll have this program turned around. I think he can do it in 2-3, but just knowing how he is as a recruiter, I mean, every time he goes after a prospect, from what I've seen, it's always a full court press. I think he had really good recruiting classes when he was at Oregon. And I think he's a guy that deeply understands, everything starts in the trenches. And I think those coaches really succeed in college football because they stress that, because they understand the importance of it. As you get in there and you're trying to get, a yard on fourth down, it's the important, aspect of, really.
You still there, Scott?
Miami's always had the skill players. It's never been the problem. But I think a few less drops in that Texas A&M game, and I think they lost off that one play. I don't even know who the returner was, but I mean, I don't know why he was going for the ball. He should have just called a poison, or gave himself up with a fair catch. I don't really know what that was about, but I'm sure he probably got coached up on not to do that anymore, and they're going to move on. But they're a play away from winning Texas A&M, who I don't really think Texas A&M was that good of a program this year either. I think Jimbo. I think aren't they a young team? I didn't really look into them that much, but I think they're young from what I've read. They had a really good recruiting class. I know that, but looking at the landscape of Miami's schedule and who they've played, I think it's a disappointing loss. Obviously versus Middle Tennessee. They just played down to their opponent, but like I said, I think that comes back on out recruiting the old culture. And I know a lot about that culture, but of just not playing down to your opponents, because it's easy to fall into that mindset of a trap, as far as they're not good, like, what are we doing after the game? You know what I mean? Like, that happened a lot when I was there. I know that. I mean, I just think, you give Coach Cristobal the time, and he'll definitely bring in guys that are all about ball at the end of the day, and want to be successful, and yeah, let's give him some time, man. I don't think, fans really got to, I think everybody understands, what Coach Cristobal did as far as assembling a staff, and what the university did as far as going all in, on sports. Finally, I think, I'll just say there's no better time to still go to Miami than there is right now, especially with what they're pouring into athletics. It's awesome to see, obviously the record doesn't really show what everybody, wants to see, at the end of the day, but I'm not worried. It's Coach Cristobal. If anybody's going to get it turned around, if anybody's going to turn that program into, a powerhouse program again, so.
No, 100%. And I mean, you are preaching to the choir, because this is a guy that been there, done that. We all know that. And he has been in several stops. He was here with Butch, recruiting for Butch, knew what it took, knew part of what it took to assemble the best college football team that anybody has ever seen, right? Has some time at Rutgers, FIU, Bama. Then he has his time at
Let's go back to FIU
at Oregon,
because I actually remember him at FIU. He went didn't he take them to 2 bowl games after And then
They won a bowl. I know T.Y. Hilton was on one of those teams that they won a bowl. I think it was somewhere up in Detroit where the Lions played. Whatever bowl game that was, they won a bowl. I think it was first ever FIU bowl win. And I'm not sure about the second time. I know that he got fired. It was ridiculously stupid that he got fired, but I know they definitely won a bowl game at FIU.
Yeah, sorry. I thought I remember hearing something about like an AD there, why he got fired, but I couldn't remember. But anyways, yeah. So I thought he did a good job, at least at FIU. Given the limited resources there at the time, obviously, and being able to bring in guys like Ty that because when you I think are able to have that. I don't know what to call it, just attribute as far as a coach or a person from the outside looking in and being able to identify talent. Like, I think people either have it or they don't. You either miss or the guys because football. And I think Coach Cristobal is clearly one of those guys, who can easily identify talent, and not worry about, I think, or ignore or not pay attention to the red flags.
Right.
In my regard, and in my understanding, and I think that's something that's really overlooked, is just people tend to not focus on the red flags and they tend to look at the hype behind somebody. And whereas, coaches, I think, if you're a great recruiter, you're not just recruiting the stars, you're recruiting, the guy that really pops on tape who, has height, length, things you can build off of and, grow and I think develop. And I think that's really overlooked too in today's game.
No, 100%. And then, you can't measure heart, you can't measure effort, something that a lot of your game was predicated on. Again, you were technically sound. I remember you came in. I think you came in that class where Jadeveon Clowney was one of the top ends, and it was like a contrast. Like he was pure athleticism, like 100% athleticism, and you had your athleticism, but you were, in my opinion, more technical than him coming out of high school.
Wait,
and so
you talking about Jadeveon Clowney?
You came in that you and he came in that class, right? You were in the same class as Jadeveon, right?
No,
Coming out of high school.
No, Jadeveon came out, I think, like he was the 2013 or 2014 draft class.
Okay.
And
then
I was coming into college in 15.
Okay. My fault. I'm thinking of somebody else then.
My brother.
But what I did want to add. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I remember, like, him and my brother, I think, went to the same NFL combine. That's why I know.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm mixing up the patches then. But let me ask you a question, because I wasn't gonna go there, but you kind of brought it up, and this is kind of what Miami's experiencing right now in terms of like locker room stuff, without getting anybody in trouble, without revealing stuff that you probably shouldn't. You talked about, I was part of that culture. I know what that's like. There are still guys on this team that experienced, the past regime, obviously, when you were there, what have you. Can you kind of talk about, what goes into guys when they have, let's take DJ Ivey, for example, another guy who I really, really root for, and you probably saw him play one of the best games he's ever played against Texas A&M, right? Physical on the guys, on the receivers, really tight with them and swatting balls away. And then it's just kind of weird because you hear about it, and how he practices and how he looks great in practice. And physically, the guy looks like a first-round pick. I mean, 6'1", 6'2", whatever he is, $190, runs like the wind. I know he had an ACL in high school, but the dude looks like a great specimen at corner. Like if you had to build one, that's the guy. Can you kind of talk about maybe, guys not looking how they do in practice versus the game? Is there some type of disconnect there? And maybe a little bit of what you experienced, some of that old culture that is clearly going to take a long time to kind of remold or completely extract, so that some of this newness that the new coaching staff is trying to build and show these guys is going to take over. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, well, let me just say this for the get-go is, and I don't know, DJ, we weren't like close, you know what I mean? But like, I don't want to sit here and say like DJ is one of those guys that fell into culture where like, you come into a trap game basically and you underestimate your guy. Like,
okay,
for all we know, like Middle Tennessee could have been, because again, I don't watch film on Middle Tennessee. I don't know what they ran previously the first 2 or 3 games, but like, they could have came out with something completely different that they hadn't shown on film because they knew they were playing Miami, and it caught Miami off guard. And obviously, you're in a dogfight with Middle Tennessee, which you should never be if you're Miami. Mm-hmm. But this happens, it shouldn't happen, but and it won't happen, I think, when you become an elite program. But nonetheless, it happens when you're obviously, new regime comes in and you're trying to, pretty much grow and develop your culture and what your ideas are, as a team that you want to implement, as far as mentality, how you want to play on the field, et cetera. But, and they could have come out something completely different. And maybe that's why I didn't even, pay attention to DJ that much, but maybe that's why he didn't look, at his best. And that happens as an athlete too. Not everybody's going to have a perfect game every week. I think, the better ones just have more consistent play. And that's, obviously I know that's something DJ's working towards, striving towards, every week. And, hopefully he just has an even better game this next week and proves everybody wrong. That's what we all want to see. And, we hope to see. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, when I was there, the culture, and like, it wasn't bad culture with, Diaz, but I'll say this, I just felt like there was a lot of like talk about who we were going to be, how, and less of how we were going to be it, like, it's cool. Yeah. I think we can beat this team, but like, let's get into more of the meat potatoes. Like, tell me how, like, when they're running this play, why is this defense better? Like, I like to know that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm more of a guy that had like a methodical, like when I got to Colorado State, like that was that whole BC staff pretty much. And like, I fit in perfect with them because, my coach would break everything down and tell me this is why this defense is going to work versus them, or this is why we at least think this defense is going to work versus them. And they weren't perfect because nobody's perfect, but sometimes teams come out with new plays again that catch you off guard, and you're not 100% sound because the defenses that coaches are calling are meant to beat the certain plays that they've already game planned for. Right. So when they come out with something new, you're either trying to adapt or play your best defense. It's basically a chess game between coordinators and getting the players in the right position. But sometimes, for example, you could have a blitz on and you could squirt somebody out of the backfield that wasn't, really going to be there or originally planned to be there. And then now all of a sudden somebody that was taking a blitz pattern or, a track inside, defensive end, maybe you didn't have the defensive end peeling that week and he didn't know he was going to have to peel because they never really flared a running back out. And then obviously the running back can pick up 10, 15, maybe a first down. And it's little plays like that can build up over the course of a game that I don't think people truly understand. Behind it. If it was just, we've got more 5 stars in this team, we should go out there and beat them every week. And Miami would still probably be, winning. I get it, but like that's not always the case. And it's, it's really hard, I think, in sports to really explain where there is that disconnect between, fans and people inside the building that truly understand that. And to be honest with you, a lot of the time when I was at Miami, I didn't understand that either. And it wasn't until I got with, again, that staff at BC, not BC, but the staff from BC at Colorado State, that I really started to be able to put that together. And I think that's why I flourished as a player, because I got that little substance in between and I knew exactly how I fit in the defense, and that's where I really started to take control as a player and understand, like, all right, like when they're in this formation, I know the percentages of them running this play or this, and I know, all right, well, they don't get in this formation a lot. That's a red flag. Like, let me look for a trick play on this, because this wasn't in their, first 3 games or 4 games, et cetera. And I think, a lot of the time when you see successful players on the field, truly like they're better, best players. Like I can guarantee you right now, like Pink and Shaq were probably doing that. I don't even have to ask them, but I can probably guarantee they were both doing that, because that's how they were on the field. But I didn't figure that out as a younger player, and, I'm kicking myself because I didn't know how to it then, and it wasn't again until I got with that one coaching staff that, helped me as a player. But, sometimes all it takes is, just a new, change of scene for a player, too. And I'm not like DJ would have benefited from that either, but sometimes players can benefit from that, getting, in front of new faces that, show them a different perspective on how to look at certain, plays or, schemes and all that too. So that's something to take into account too. Nobody's perfect. Nobody makes the right choice off the rip, but that's my thoughts pretty much on that.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, because I mean, and by the way, you're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 Network. Scott Patton on with us, former, and I take that back, not former Miami Hurricane, because once a Cane, always a Cane. I'll go ahead and say former football player with the Miami Hurricanes, transferred to Colorado State. Had some nice seasons there at Colorado State. Finished, I think you were like a first team Mountain West in 2020. And let me see what you Bednarik watch list, Bednarik Award watch list in 2021, Nagurski Trophy watch list in 2021, and so he's joining us right now. And yeah, man, because I wanted to ask you about that, because that's the talk a lot about the issues that Miami may be facing right now, in terms of beating a team that or not beating a team that you shouldn't have beaten, or just inconsistencies that seems to never have left the program for years on end. And this is stuff going back to Golden and then Rick and then Diaz. And then now, we're seeing them now. And so, I mean, I wanted to ask you about it because after the Middle Tennessee State loss, right after in the post-game press conference, there's a couple players that pretty much hinted that, yeah, we may have overlooked them. They didn't say those words, so I don't want to put words in their mouth. But kind of reading between the lines and just kind of looking at their mannerisms and what they were saying. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it because it's out there. Ja'Kai Clark said that the energy wasn't there in the pregame. And so, we kind of, our minds weren't where they were supposed to be. I take that as not mentally prepping or not doing what you need to do to make sure that you are out of the game by halftime, because that's the goal. I like to see the young guys play. They need the reps. They want the reps. They deserve the reps if they're, doing what they need to do in practice. And so I wanted to ask you about that. And pretty much what you were saying is, yes, they were giving you the how, but, you wanted to know more the why, because that could go a long way in your performance on the field. Let me ask you something. You were part of that team that was, I think you guys were like on a 3-game winning streak. You guys beat FSU 27-10. Then you go out and beat Louisville. I called that game 2 for WVUM. Big game for Jaron Williams. And then the FIU game happens, right? And then, I mean, I'm going to compare this Middle Tennessee State game to FIU. I still think FIU is the worst loss in program history. When you coming off of a game like that, because I'm comparing that game, the FIU game and the Middle Tennessee game, also because, the following week, you guys had Duke. You go to Duke, lose that one by 10 points. This is a very important game for Miami. It's not towards the end of the season, where things were kind of already, maybe people's heads were elsewhere. But this is the first game in the ACC, and there's a lot riding on this game. Only 5 games into the season, a loss would not bode well for Miami, even though, yes, it would only be one ACC loss, but still have going, 2-game losing streak over 3 weeks because you had a bad taste in your mouth after a bye week. Can you kind of take me in the minds of what guys should be going through or how they should be prepping, at least mentally, for this game? Are you hungry? Were you hungry after that FIU loss? Were you pissed off? I mean, what needs to be going on right now? Because in my opinion, from the outside looking in as a fan and alum, I'm pissed. and my hair is on fire. Like, give me a helmet. Like, let's go. And if I feel that way, I know there's got to be guys in the locker room that feel that way. How is that if it's not contagious?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd agree with you. That FIU loss was pitiful, and I really can't speak to it that much because I barely played, to be honest. That was, I think that was around the time. I think Diaz was trying to phase me out or whatever the deal was, but Trayvon and was getting more snaps than me, and obviously Greg and Garv were getting all the snaps at that point, and then so I was already pissed off, put it like that. But but I mean, I think, yeah, easily as a player, especially if you're playing in that game and you felt embarrassed, your mentality as a competitor should be like, all right, can't let that happen again. Can't let that slip. And I think, like I said, that at some point somebody asked me after the North Carolina loss, earlier that year, it's the same thing. You just don't want to have that, thought process as, a teammate. I don't want to let my teammates down. And I think when you're really a team player, I definitely know Coach Cristobal's recruiting. You don't want to let that happen. So that's your main goal as a player. Can't let my teammates down. How do I improve this week? Where were my MAs? If I had any busts, where were those at? How do I correct that? Getting with my position coach, meeting extra, taking all the next necessary steps and, elevating your game as a player. Because, you look at it however you want. You basically got 12 one-week seasons, if you really want to take it that seriously and break it up like that. I had a roommate at CSU, Cam, who I think he transferred to Liberty. Yeah, he's at Liberty right now. He's the starting center for Liberty, and me and him used to talk all the time, when I was at Colorado State, because he was starting there too. But 1 week seasons, because we weren't doing good either. We ended up 3-9 my last year at Colorado State. But and it's not necessarily when you're in a losing season, you want to play for yourself, even though a lot of guys do. But you'd have to take it 1 week at a time, during the season, because that's all you can do. It's not even when you're in a losing situation, you can play for yourself, because you still have to play within the scheme. Because when you play within the scheme is where you're actually available to make more plays. Because when you try to play or be Superman outside of the scheme is where you see mistakes happen and a lot of, just bad things is what I'll call them.
Right.
Bust, MAs, all that. So I think kids, should really focus on not being Superman and really focus on, honing in on their assignments, and just getting back to the basics, and then letting their effort and heart take place on the field within the scheme, within the play calling.
Fair enough. I mean, look, Miami definitely has talent. Miami is not void of talent. One thing that I'm going to go ahead and say, I really don't think that the cupboard was left bare by Manny for Mario. I mean, there was talent there. Can there be more issues? I'm sorry, not more issues, but more help in terms of depth? Sure. That's why Mario hit the portal like he did, especially in the trenches. And, a bunch of guys on the D line and a couple of guys from Oregon on the O line. And, here we are, but in also some skill positions. But it's just frustrating because, and I get it. Like what you were saying, you got to, trust the guy next to you to make the move or make the tackle or be where he is supposed to be. And I'm assuming for a guy that's never really played organized football, I'm just, one of the backyard all-stars like that. It's different. It's different. And, coming from, I guess what I'm trying to say is unlearning the bad is taking longer than people expected. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I drank the Kool-Aid in the preseason because I'm just thinking, it's going to be quicker than I thought. Definitely didn't see a loss to Middle Tennessee State. I was happy how Miami looked in a loss, if that makes sense, to Texas A&M because I think they showed up. They kicked their ass. All right, they really did. You look at the box score, and I know that the box score doesn't always tell the story, but if you watch that game, Miami kicked their ass. They did whatever they wanted to do, except when they got inside the 20. So when you see that, and then you have a loss against Middle Tennessee State, it's like what happened, in the week before, or in the week between that. So I just wanted to ask you about the FIU loss because the next week, like I said, you guys went up to Duke. Didn't have a great showing, ended up losing, I think it was by 10 points in a rainy game. And so this is at home against a team that scores a lot of points against a pretty good quarterback, and probably this is the best quarterback Miami's played so far this year. All right. Not better. He's better than Bethune's quarterback, better than Southern Miss's quarterback, better than Max Johnson over at Texas A&M, and better than this, I think his name was Chase Cunningham over at Middle Tennessee State. So right now, this is the best quarterback Miami has seen, and these guys put up points. So, it's easier said than done. I don't want to go ahead and play armchair quarterback or anything like that, but it's just like it's human nature. And I know what I feel like, all right, especially if I know that we're more talented than this team. So thanks for breaking that down. And, before I let you go, because I know Scott was telling me, guys, he has to go hit the gym. He's still staying ready, just in case he gets that call from someone. So he's got to hit the gym after this. I'm going to go ahead and hit the gym after the show as well. But I just wanted to ask you, man, rest of the season outlook, okay? Assuming Miami goes ahead and gets this win. I think last time I checked, they were a 3-point favorite, which honestly was surprising to me. But what is it going to take from Miami? Obviously a win this Saturday, but to kind of build on getting to where they need to be, because the goal is Charlotte. Yeah.
No, that's the goal. You're right about that. I think they have to continue to pound the rock. I think, make it easy for TVD. I think the better you run the ball, the more you're going to pull guys into the box, and then it's a numbers game from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So establish the run, continue to run the ball great like they have. And then on defense, just get some more negative plays, man. That's all it is. Create more havoc on defense. And it's simple, man. Like I really want to, get up there in the offseason and talk with, Coach Steele and just learn his philosophy. But from what I watched, I like it. I like their defense. I think they bend, but they don't break at times. And, I think that's a great, mentality to have as a coach. I think they play, good, solid versus Max Johnson at Texas A&M. And I thought he added a different element to their team, on the offensive side for sure, too, because they had a very similar week. They lost to, who was it, App State, I think? And then they turned around. They had a strong competitive game versus us, too, because if they weren't starting Max, I would have bet the house on, Miami to that game. But I don't bet, so don't ask me why I bet. But,
Okay. Cool, man. Thanks for staying over. I know that we were supposed to get off this segment a couple minutes ago, but, we were rolling, and, you're an awesome guest, man. I'm just hoping this is not the last time we do this.
Nah, man. I'm happy to be on anytime you want, man.
Appreciate you, man. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys on the other side of the break. You're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the 305 Sports Network. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the home for hardcore Miami Hurricanes coverage. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
Red Recover now offers a simple-to-use, professional-grade light therapy device designed to help your dog heal and live a healthier life. Red Recover emits red and infrared light therapy based on the same science that NASA developed, all in a soft, flexible housing pad powered by a convenient, rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Say yes to science and give your dog the care it deserves with Red Recover.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
You're locked into the only platform truly dedicated to South Florida sports. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch on the Sports Talk 305 network. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around with us throughout that last break. You are listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch on the 305 Sports Talk network. I'm your host, Mike McCoy. Last segment was Scott Patton joining us. Played his ball here for, I think it was 5 seasons for the University of Miami before transferring to Colorado State, where he had 2 really solid seasons over with that staff there. And you want to know what? I'm pretty pissed off after talking to Scott because, you know, some things were revealed. If you missed it, this show will be on Big O's YouTube page. And, you know, as soon as we're done, or a couple minutes after we're done in podcast form, go ahead and listen to that segment because he dropped some nuggets, you know, without throwing people under the bus, and it was just, you know, talking about the last regime. And the only reason I brought it up is because he threw that bone out there, and I said, I got him. Not I got him, but I got it. Like, there's my, you know, because I wasn't going to ask him about it. But, you know, just about, he talked about, well, I think the quote was, what he said is, I know a lot about that culture. And that just triggered something. Well, I'm going to ask him about it. And so go ahead and listen to that. That's a guy that if you weren't rooting for him, or if you were trashing him, you just didn't know what the hell you were talking about because the dude was solid, okay? The dude was a solid player, and I'm going to go ahead and say he was more than solid. I think he was above average because of the simple fact that he did his job, and that's something right now that Miami's not getting. Miami's not getting guys that are not across the board that are doing their job, whether it's mental lapses, whatever the case is, because if everybody was doing their job to the best of their ability, they would not be 2-2, all right? At worst, they'd be 3-1. Okay. As a matter of fact, they could be 4-0. Miami could be 4-0 right now. Miami should be 4-0 right now. The only team, in my opinion, that really beat Miami was Middle Tennessee State. I'm calling it like it is. Texas A&M didn't beat Miami. Texas A&M did not beat Miami. Miami can go out on the field right now, finish that A&M game if it was on Saturday because Miami had their number on both sides of the ball. All right. And again, I bring up the box score, but the box scores don't always tell the story. If you watch that game, Miami did whatever the hell they wanted to do on both sides of the ball. They couldn't run. Texas A&M couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. And Max Johnson, thank God that Jimbo decided to make that substitution, but he looked like a deer in headlights most of the night, okay? But I said that to say, I think I'm a little bit calmer now. You know, it was a great interview. Thanks for calling in, Scott. But, you know, on to UNC, and, you know, they're bringing in an offense that, oh, my God. We got to talk about that because – I don't know if you guys remember, but that same Texas A&M team that went into Kyle Field and beat the brakes off of Texas A&M, all right? UNC played that same exact Appalachian State team and almost lost 63-61, their second game of the season, okay? They went into Appalachian State, all right, which is, I don't know how far away it is from Chapel Hill, but nice, you know, in-state rivalry, you know, or maybe should be. This is a team that I think should probably join the ACC because Appalachian State, they've shown that they can go into, you know, venues and nothing phases them. Really, really good coaching. Frank Ponce was there, you know, for a little bit. But they won 63-61. The week prior, week 1 of college football, UNC beat Florida A&M at home. Looked very shaky. Don't let the 56-24 score fool you because in the third quarter, that was a 1-score game. I was watching that game. All right. So this UNC team is a team that clearly is putting up points, but you know they've shown to not look their best against Florida A&M first game of the season. They definitely didn't look their best defensively against Appalachian State on the road. 63-61. They definitely didn't look their best the very next week at Georgia State, winning 35-28. 35-28. All right. They lose at home to Notre Dame. They go in there and beat Virginia Tech, which everybody's doing nowadays because Virginia Tech looks god awful. Okay, 41-10. This team puts up points, and they do it in the air. All right. Last time that UNC was down here, 2020, a day after my graduation, they are still running for touchdowns on Miami's defense, on Manny Diaz's defense. Okay, so they ran the rock like hell in that game. I think to the tune of like 500 something yards on the ground. All right. And so, like I said, they're doing it in the air right now, and their quarterback is a big reason for that. Let's talk about him because Drake May, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, wait a minute. I got it right. Yeah, Drake May. Big kid, 6'4", 220, freshman from North Carolina. He's doing his thing. And let me tell you something. 19 touchdowns to 1 interception. Doesn't sound like he's going to make many mistakes, guys. Doesn't sound like he's going to make many mistakes. And you want to know what? For a secondary that really, really has struggled, and I'm not just talking about the Middle Tennessee State game, struggled because, you look hot, you look cold, you look hot, you look cold. A good team, a good secondary, an experienced secondary is going to look good across the board, all right? His QBR right now is, and not just across the board, but consistently. That's what makes a good team. You can have all the talent in the world. Are you consistent with it? And that's what Miami's learning how to do right now. And I get it. There's some injuries that they're dealing with, what have you. But what I'm looking for this week is if there are any personnel changes, and mind you, it doesn't have to be starting lineup, okay, whoever starts out there, because it's really more about who gets the most snaps throughout a game. Starting doesn't really, it doesn't matter. It's like basketball. Do you want to start or do you want to finish the game, right? So I said that to say what? Oh, okay. Yeah, 19 touchdowns, 1 interception. Is Mario going to pull the plug on guys that maybe are holding their weight? And look, this is not just a situation, just a game where TVD is going to have all eyes on him, right? And to me, if he's not himself, all right, I'm giving him a 2, maybe 3 series leash at best, because this is a game that you cannot afford to fall behind. You can't. Right? Miami doesn't look like they play their best ball from behind so far. I know it's only 4 games into this era, into the Mario Cristobal era, but still, like, you don't want to put your guys behind the 8 ball knowing that they have a new offense, knowing that they're struggling and, with whatever it is, picking up blocks on the O-line. But I'm talking about pulling a leash on guys across the board defensively. All right? You guys already know how I feel about Corey Flagg. I love him, and I'm not one of these guys bashing him, but I don't love him on 3rd and obvious passing downs. That's the only thing. It's the only thing. And that's okay. That doesn't make him a bad football player. It doesn't make him a bad linebacker if there's other players on the team that do that better than you. That's okay. I'm sure he doesn't mind getting off the field if it's better for the team on 3rd and whatever the case was, 12, 15, because Miami is 1st and 2nd down all-stars. And then they get to 3rd down. It's like, what the hell happened? You know what I mean? Like, come on. So this guy, Drake May, ladies and gentlemen, 1,594 yards so far in the season. Good for 6 in all of college football. His 19 touchdowns are tied for first. Again, 1 interception on the season and a 90.6 QBR. So, listen, 4 o'clock, I don't know what the weather's going to be looking like, but Miami has to be on their P's and Q's. Okay? They really got to. I'm wondering what Steele is going to cook up. Because if you guys remember, when he was coaching over at Auburn, when LSU had that crazy season in 2019, which a lot of people like to call the greatest football team of all time, and this is crazy. Maybe they had the best season of all time, and that's different from having the best team of all time. I could give you that. He had great numbers and everything, but that season where LSU was tearing it up offensively, Steele went in there into Death Valley. Okay, it wasn't a night game, but they still went into Death Valley. And he had it seemed like he was rushing 3 guys the entire game. Gave him fits. So this is a guy, and credit to Steele, because in that Monday press conference, he said, look, whatever didn't look right, okay, don't come with the players. It's all 100% on me, and my fault for not having the audio, because Sean and Chad would have played it for you guys. But his press conference was awesome on Monday. He was like, look, don't point anywhere. Me. Preparation, me. This, me. So he's falling on the sword for his players, which is great and admirable to see. But we all know that it's not just all on coaching. We all know that there's guys that have mental lapses, and I commend them for that. But this is a guy. It feels like to me that these players, they're letting these coaches down. They're making them look bad. Okay, sometimes the linebacker play is making Charlie Strong look like a bad linebackers coach, and that's not the case. Kevin Steele's a linebackers guy. Sometimes they're making him look like a bad linebackers guy, and that's not the case. Jason Taylor's coaching your defensive ends, all right? That sometimes that unit isn't getting home. That's probably the most consistent unit, the D-line across the board that Miami has all season. But still, you want to see, my point is consistency, all right, on both sides of the ball. And Miami is building to that. You heard what Scott said in terms of what Miami's got to do to probably, get back on track, run the ball. And I think that's going to be huge in this game. Why? Because you got to control the clock against a team that is putting up 19 against a quarterback that's putting up 19 touchdowns. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go back and go ahead and remind you, their season low in terms of scoring was 35 points, and that was on the road. I get it. It's Georgia State, but still 56, 63, 35, 45, and 41. Okay, I'm sorry, 32. They put up 32 points against Notre Dame at home. They're going to put up points, and if Miami doesn't show up, they're going to get boat raced again. And these aren't, look, it's hurting me to say these things, but I got to keep it real with you guys, right? And, so we all saw what DJ Ivey did versus Texas A&M. Awesome. Fell off versus MTSU. I don't care at this point, at any position. I don't care what the depth looks like. If the number one, the number two guys aren't getting it right, you got to go ahead and put the guys in, even if they're not ready, behind them. Just, number one, to send a message, and number two, to see what you got. Because they may surprise you. Some guys are gamers. Look at Brock Berlin. The guy's a gamer, right? The guy was a gamer. And say what you want about Brock, he's good in my book, undefeated against FSU and the Gators. So, say what you want about him. But some guys are just gamers, and you don't know what you have until you know what you have, right? So that's that about the UNC game. I don't really have much else to say in terms of that. But what I do have something to say about is I want to go ahead and talk about really quick Thad Franklin. I'm going to ask the guys to pull up a clip really quick, because this is something that I wanted to mention in the first segment of the show before Scott joined us. I was talking about depth. I was talking about Henry Parrish. His status is up in the air, to say something without saying much. We all know Rooster, with a guy who runs the ball like he does, having a soft tissue injury, that hamstring, that's a lingering injury. It's a lot like a high ankle sprain. It sucks, okay, for a guy as twitchy as he is, and you got to take your time with it. So if you're looking at it, Miami has one scholarship running back available for the game, right? Thad Franklin. And then Lucius Stanley, like I said, the running back from UAB. But here's the audio on Coach Mario talking about Thad and his preparation and how ready he needs to be for UNC. Check it out.
Yeah, no, we feel confident that he can, and we got to impress that upon him and make sure that he fully understands that. I think he wants to do that. I think he's learning more and more, and he's growing in that role. So he's a guy that has gained our trust, and he's going to have the trust of all of his teammates with the way we're pushing him to practice and make sure he understands every bit of it, because it's not just running the football right. It's protections, it's blocking, it's all that stuff. So Thad has certainly come a long way, and we expect that his best football is still ahead of him also.
The guy's built like a workhorse running back. He's going to have to play like one. He's honestly going to have to play like one, because you see him, 6 foot at best, 230 plus pounds. I think he's pushing like 240. The guy's a load. The guy is a load, and he is talented. Can run between the tackles, shifty enough. I like how he can move. Inside the tackles, but don't let his ability to maybe break one, outside off tackle fool you, because he could move. He could run you over, through you, or around you, and probably has that Frank Gore sneaky speed. All right, I'm not comparing the Frank Gore at all, but I am in the sense of sneaky speed. He doesn't look like the type of guy that's gonna go ahead and blow you out the water with his speed. But Lucius Stanley, expect to see a lot of him, because of the fact that we don't know, assuming Parrish, who's been Miami's most consistent offensive threat this year, doesn't play, which is going to suck. That guy runs hard. Expect to see a lot of Thad, and there's a lot of people out there that have been waiting to see that because he can handle the load. Remember last year when Miami was given the ball like 30 plus times a game, not 30 plus times a game, but 30 plus carries to Rooster against Georgia Tech. I thought they were going to break him because he's not built for that. He felt fine after the game. And of course, young guy, he's going to feel fine. But a guy that size isn't meant to carry the ball as much as he did on that night, right? So my formula for the game on Saturday is easy. Get the hell off the field on third downs, okay? Because you cannot give this offense more opportunities than what you've given them, all right? If you have a third down on this team, get the hell off the field now. You got to do it. And I'm going to be really pissed off if it's third and obvious and we are seeing the same guys out there making mistakes. That's what's going to piss me off. And then I'm going to have to get into another topic next week that I don't want to get into because I believe in this staff, right? But what we also have to get into before we go away is the three McCoys. And for those of you that are maybe just now tuning in for the first time or, don't remember what it was, this is Chad, O's, and Sean's idea of kind of giving last week's All-Stars or who I think were MVPs. It doesn't have to be Miami Hurricanes. It could be anybody across college football. So we're going to go ahead and reveal who those three McCoys are right now.
We're holstered and ready to unleash this week's Real McCoys. Time to hand out awards for this week's MVPs for the Miami Hurricanes. The Real McCoys.
All right. It's going to be pretty simple, straightforward, and to the point, right? Saw a lot of college football last week, more than I do with when the Hurricanes are playing, because let's be honest, I'm really only paying attention to one game when they're playing, so you miss out flipping back and forth. But for the third place Real McCoy, all right, a guy that transferred from Indiana in a losing effort, quarterback transferred over to Washington, all right, and led a valiant effort, a valiant comeback, because they were down by, I want to say, 3 scores. I was at the gym watching the game. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback that transferred over from Indiana, a Tampa, Florida guy, plays a lot bigger than what, because he doesn't, in my opinion, he looks like a smaller-ish type of quarterback on the field, all right? But you look at him, you look him up, 6'3", 214. I'm going to go ahead and give him the third place Real McCoy. On the season, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Seamless transition over to Washington. He played a really good game. Washington came back. They did lose last week, but I just liked how that never die mentality. All right, they were ranked 15th at the time that they went into UCLA and lost. There was an undefeated matchup at the time. Both teams were 4-0. Now UCLA 5-0, 2-0 in the Pac-12, and Washington has that lone loss on the road. But Michael Penix, Real McCoy, number 3.
Real McCoy. Real.
The second one is easy for me because this is a game that I was watching. This was was it a later game? I can't remember if the lights were on in my house or not, but that Georgia-Missouri game, man. Oh my God. I mean, am I the only one that roots for underdogs? Really? I don't think so. I love to see upsets, all right, and I like to see, David beat Goliath, and that would have totally been the case because Missouri had this game. They really had the game. But as a team, a complete total team effort, again, in a losing loss, but I like the effort. The Missouri Tigers at home, barely losing to the defending champion Georgia Bulldogs 26-22, but they get Real McCoy number 2 because they had Georgia scared. They had Georgia on the ropes. And you want to know what I hate? I hate that every coach, whenever they get a chance, they throw in their face. Because they asked Kirby Smart after the game, what do you think about the effort in the game today? Well, the SEC is a tough place to play. Shut up. But any event, Missouri Tigers, Real McCoy number 2.
Real McCoy.
And last but not least, all right, Real McCoy number 3. This one was kind of, I don't know what word to use, but I'll go ahead and say, I was excited about it because I'm a Mike Leach fan. And the best thing that I saw throughout that Mississippi State Texas A&M game, in which Mississippi State went into, again, Kyle Field, and they beat Texas A&M, beat the brakes off them 42-24, by the way. Mississippi State's now 4-1. Okay, Texas A&M is 3-2. Jimbo, what the hell's going on? You know what I saw? I saw an article talking about Urban Meyer maybe replacing Jimbo if he gets the boot. Oh my God, people just don't learn. People just don't learn. And shame on you if you're one of these Miami fans that we're talking about hoping to get Urban Meyer, if and when the opportunity presented itself. Are you dumb? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Did you want Miami to go win a national championship and then go on probation for 3 years after that because of what it took to win a national championship? The hell's wrong with you? No, that guy would be terrible for the program. Miami already is in a fishbowl, but that's my Urban Meyer soapbox. But in any event, Mike Leach gets the real McCoy #1, not because of leading his team to victory, but because of the interview he had with one of the sideline reporters. I don't know if it was after the game or going into the half. So the sideline reporter that interviewed Mike Leach, and again, my fault for not having the audio, but I actually was just doing this on the fly. Believe it or not, the real McCoy, I was doing it on the fly thinking about it. But he was asked by the sideline reporter, because she's getting married, and if she had any advice for her husband. And, he told her, he was like, go elope. And if you don't elope, he asked her for her fiance's name, what he does for a living. He's in sports. He told her to tell her fiance to give him a call, and he'll give him some advice. He's like, if he doesn't elope, he's making a huge mistake and this and that. Go watch the interview. It's funny. Just pull up Mike Leach interview, Texas A&M, sideline reporter, whatever keywords you want to put in there on YouTube. It'll come up. That guy's great. They call him a pirate for I don't know why they call him that, but the dude is hilarious. He's funny. And that's a guy that I'd want to play for, not just because his offense is fun, but you want to, I don't know, something about football coaches. I think they got to have some screws loose. I think it's kind of like being a police officer. You got to be kind of out there to kind of risk your life and not knowing what to expect when you leave your house for duty for 8 hours. Same thing for football coaches. Something's got to be wrong with them. And there's something got to be wrong with guys that could talk for an hour straight. If you're a radio show host, right? And let's say you didn't have any guests, because I've had shows in the past that didn't have guests, and I'm talking for 2 hours because that's the time that I'm used to for being on air. So I'll throw myself in the boat. I think I got to be pretty crazy to hold a conversation with myself and just keep rambling and rambling and rambling, which is why I'm going to let you guys go, because it is 9:10 p.m. I got to get to the gym just like Scott. And again, I appreciate you, Scott, for coming on in the show and joining us. So next week we're going to have somebody else different. I think I kind of have it narrowed down as to who it is. I'm not going to go ahead and reveal it till a little closer to showtime. But guys, if you have a chance to make it to the game on this Saturday, 4 o'clock, go ahead and support the boys, because they need it. They're going to need it. Or if you're in the area, head out to walk-ons. Come by, say hi to the crew. Chad, Sean, and myself. We'll be there 2 hours before kickoff for the pregame show, and then as soon as the clock strikes 0, we will be there to bring you post-game coverage until we don't have anything else to talk about. Hopefully it's a win. Until then, guys, stay safe, go Canes, and I'll see you next week.
I know you have strong thoughts on weddings. I'm in the middle of planning one right now. Do you have any advice for me?
Who are you marrying?
His name is Trevor.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to set up a meeting and I'll talk to him. Okay, so where's Trevor from?
He's from Florida.
What does Trevor do for a living?
He works in sports as well, covers football.
He does what?
He covers football as well.
Really? Well, I don't know. We'll keep a close eye on it, but whatever you and Trevor decide, I would kind of keep it on the down low, which you failed to do that. Trevor was probably planning to, but you didn't. So go ahead and don't say anything else about it. But as soon as the season's over, or even an off week, go elope. Trust me on that. Go elope. Because basically every female in the family is going to terrorize you guys until it's over. Once it's over, I mean, they'll be upset for a few days, but it'll be over. And then, you cruise away, along, have a happy marriage, have a happy life.
I'll pass along the message. Thanks, Coach. Congrats on the win.
Trevor, unless he's crazy, is totally on my side. And trust me on this. If Trevor doesn't have the sense to do that, tell him to call me, because, I mean, he needs to do trust. I've told all my kids, I'll give you $10,000 extra if you elope. So far, they haven't done it, but I would, too.
I'll have him call you for sure.
Real McCoy. Real. That's this week's Real McCoys on the Miami Hurricanes Watch.